A World Cup story that didn't start on the pitch. It started with a number. Most people think football stories begin with a kickoff, but this one began with something far quieter, a follower count. At the start of the 2026 World Cup, Vozinha was just another veteran goalkeeper from a small African nation. Cape Verde had never carried expectations on this stage. He wasn't supposed to be the headline. He wasn't even supposed to be remembered.
He had around 50,000 Instagram followers when the tournament began. Within weeks, that number stopped behaving like a statistic. It became a signal, because something unusual was happening in Group H. Cape Verde weren't just surviving their World Cup debut. They were resisting teams that were supposed to erase them from the story. Spain, one of the tournament favorites, took 27 shots in their opening clash. Vozinha stopped enough of them to freeze the game at 0-0. Not a miracle, not luck, just repetition under pressure. Decision after decision, save after save. And somewhere outside the stadium, the match stopped being just a football result. It became content. Within 24 hours of that draw, his social media following exploded into the millions. Within days, he was being mentioned alongside names that define modern football culture. Casillas, Courtois, Neuer. But the real shift wasn't the comparison. It was what caused it. Because Cape Verde's goalkeeper wasn't just blocking shots. He was becoming visible at the exact moment the world was watching for something to believe in. That pattern continued against stronger opponents, against fatigue, against expectation. And then came Argentina. Messi's team didn't just play Cape Verde. They stretched them to their limit, pushing the match deep into extra time before finally breaking through in a 3-2 victory. But even in defeat, something stayed intact. Vozinha made 18 saves across the tournament, finishing with elite efficiency against some of the most aggressive attacks on the planet. And after the final whistle, the moment that spread further than any statistic wasn't a goal. It was a conversation. Messi approached him. A simple exchange, a handshake, a shirt request, and a sentence that traveled faster than the match itself. You are great. Your people should be proud of you. That moment mattered less for what it said about Messi, and more for what it revealed about what had just happened to Vozinha. Because by then, his story was no longer confined to football logic. It was governed by attention.
He went from roughly 50,000 followers to tens of millions, surpassing global sports icons across completely different sports cultures. Not because algorithms decided it, but because the World Cup created a rare alignment, a global audience looking for a human story inside a statistical tournament. And Cape Verde accidentally provided one. A goalkeeper who did not arrive as a superstar, but became one through exposure, repetition, and timing. Even Cape Verde's wider run reinforced that shift. A debut nation reaching the knockout stage, holding elite teams, stretching Argentina to extra time.
Each match added another layer to the same idea. This wasn't just underdog football. It was visibility being manufactured in real time. And Vozinha became the focal point of it. Because goalkeepers don't usually trend. They don't usually define tournaments. They usually disappear behind scorelines. But here, every save had weight beyond the match. Every stop was being watched not just as sport, but as narrative fuel.
And that is where the deeper truth sits. Cape Verde didn't just give the world a surprise team. They accidentally revealed how modern football fame is created. Not through reputation, not through history, but through moments that land in front of a global audience at exactly the right time. Vozinha's rise is not really a story about social media. It is a story about what happens when performance meets visibility at maximum scale. Because in the end, the World Cup didn't just record his saves, it amplified them. Until a goalkeeper from a nation of 500,000 people
briefly became one of the most followed footballers on earth. And long after Cape Verde exited the tournament, that number kept growing. Not because the story ended, but because the world finally saw it.